Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to Jim's 5am Club. It's Monday morning, the beginning of a new work week. It's early, looks like it's going to be a nice day. It's quite mild for this time of year, but I'm rugged up, so it could be because I'm rugged up that it's feeling mild, if you know what I mean. I missed the bus this morning, so I'm a little later than normal. The battery on the car was drained, so I had to walk to the bus stop, but it's all good. We'll knock off a couple of Jim's 5am clubs before work and see how we go. Oh, there's the monorail, or the light rail. I think I can make it. Let me just run. I'll run to make the light rail so I can get down to Circular Quay, so hang in there with me. There you go. We've got Jim jogging in the morning. Just cross over behind it. Yeah, so what we're going to do today is we're going to do a book summary. And the book summary is entitled How to Be Anti-Racist. An interesting title, but an important title. How to Be Anti-Racist, and the author is Ibram Kendi, Ibram X Kendi. So, what can we learn? What can we learn from this book? He kicks off his book with an interesting and a powerful
The next stop is Circular Quay.
quote. He says, like fighting a fire or an addiction, being an anti-racist requires persistent self-awareness, constant self-criticism, and regular self-examination. And what he does is he goes through and identifies a couple of important elements of racism that I must admit I wasn't aware of in terms of the level of detail, and he explains it very, very well. So I'll try and do the best I can to share his knowledge and his wisdom with everybody, so that at least we can contemplate what it all means. So in terms of his formal points, one of the points that comes out of the book here is that equality is not dependent on the behaviour of certain groups of people. Because he raises a valid point that one form of racism that many people don't get is called assimilationist racism, where somebody needs to change in order to fit in and be accepted. So let me just jump off the rail.
This stop is
So what he tells us is that assimilationist racism is where there's an expectation that one group needs to change in order to assimilate, in order to fit in and to be accepted, which is problematic, because what it does, according to the author, is that it tends to put one race or one group on a pedestal for the others to emulate. It's patronising, it treats people like kids, and what it does is it suggests that one race or one thought process is more superior to another, and it puts pressure on people to adjust, to change, and to try and become one. I guess when my parents first came to Australia, Australia had assimilationist policies where people were expected to take on the Australian way of life and to give up their culture, give up their beliefs, give up their way of living, and to adopt the Australian way of living, which in one way was very, very racist. And a lot of people that I know, a lot of Greeks that I know who came here in the 50s are were very confused because they thought that to fit in and be Australian, you basically needed to give up and renounce your Greekness. And they tried to become Aussies, and sadly enough, they lost a lot of their culture and a lot of the beautiful traditions and customs that they came with. And they get their noses out of joint these days because they see that Australia is a multicultural society where you're no longer expected to fit in and to give up your culture, but to use your culture to colour this beautiful country, and so you can live whichever way you want and still claim to be Australian. So I guess there's a fine line. There's a fine line between conforming and assimilating, and welcoming and celebrating the differences, the many beautiful differences that we all have, which bring colour, which bring tone, which bring texture to this weave, to this magical weave, to this magical tapestry that we call Australia. I remember when I was young and my kids were growing up, I bought some music and some personal development material for my children. I forget what it was called, but one of the songs on that package was a real funny one and a real good one, and I still remember it to this day, where it says, you can be whatever you want to be and still claim to be Australian. You know, there are 20 million, I think back then they were saying that there were 20 million ways of defining what an Australian was. And I guess that in itself was very, very empowering, because the last thing you want as a kid is to feel embarrassed or ashamed of your parents, of your background, of your culture. And I guess a lot of new Australians of my generation, I was born here. I was first generation Australian, born here, of Greek parents. And growing up, I was, like most people, really confused in terms of what was acceptable and what wasn't acceptable. And I had to run the gauntlet, so to speak. But thank God my parents spoke Greek at home, and we talked Greek. My uncles, my aunts, whenever we get together, we would express our Greekness, and it's something that I dearly thank them for, because looking back over my years now, it's one of the things that I identify with, and I'm very, very proud of now, now that I'm well into my early 60s. So one thing that we need to understand and to appreciate is that we're different from each other in many ways, but the reason why God made us different from each other and not similar to each other, He could have made us all clones of each other, where we look the same, we act the same, we behave the same, we interact the same, but that would have been boring. You know, I guess God, in His infinite wisdom, decided to create us all different from each other, for each other, so that we could leverage those differences, so we could supplement and complement each other and fit together in ways where we could create an interesting world and to create beauty in our interaction as opposed to blandness by being all the same. So that's the first point. So it's all about expressing yourself and being yourself and feeling comfortable to be yourself and not to be pressured to be anything different or to try and be like everybody else, because otherwise it'll just be an act. If you've grown up with certain morals, with certain values, with certain principles, with certain cultural norms, then it would be wrong to give those up and to adapt and to adopt somebody else's because somebody else thinks that theirs are superior. So I guess the first point is that we need to back off and let people be themselves and to celebrate our differences and our cultural backgrounds and to not get too pushy, I guess, and too opinionated, suggesting that ours is better, yours is inferior, etc. So the next thing that the author talks about is that thing called biological racism. And the author suggests here that you are racist if you think that there are significant biological differences between races. And this is another category of racism called biological racism, where you are racist if you believe that there are biological differences between races that are meaningful and that certain traits are superior or inferior. The author here reminds us that we need to understand and appreciate that from a biological perspective, all men are created the same. All people are 99.9% genetically identical. And we have only very, very small, insignificant differences. And from a Christian perspective, from a biblical perspective, we all come from the same source. And at the end of the day, the best way, the best metaphor we can use is to see ourselves as brothers and sisters, distant relatives, and to see God in every person, to get to see the expression of God in every part of creation, of human creation, should I say, more so than anything else. That when you look at somebody, you look them in the eyes, you are seeing your brother or your sister. And the other thing that the author talks about here, which is really interesting, a really interesting point, something that I'd never considered or contemplated in the past, is that you can't inherit race from your parents. All you can inherit is ethnicity, which is the part of the world that you originated from. So the author once again calls to action that we need to be mindful, we need to be relaxed when it comes to these sorts of topics and not to be too opinionated, because this being too opinionated and too strong in our views creates division, creates pain, creates suffering for each and every person, because we all deserve to feel as if we're part of the same race or the same community, and to be welcomed and not to feel inferior and not to try and feel superior as well, not to feel too different, but to accept that we're all one and to make the most of it. Because as the author says, racism is a cancer and always has been a cancer in society. And sadly, it is everywhere, and many people are in denial. So I think I'll leave it there for today. So thank you very much for joining me on this very, very moving and interesting episode of Jim's 5am Club. I guess it's a topic which is front of mind for many people. It's causing issues and challenges throughout the world, always had, and I guess probably always will. But each and every one of us can have an impact and make a contribution by understanding and being self-aware, self-critical, and performing self-examination wherever we can, and understand that there are assimilationist racism issues that we need to understand and be aware of, and there are also ones which are biological that people seem to dwell on and hold on to, which are not all that valid. And the bottom line is to understand and appreciate that we are all made different in some ways. We're all different. Every single person is different. Even the identical twins are different. They will never be the same person. We're all unique and different people, and we're created. We're done that way to fit in, to dovetail, to contribute, to live, and to become part of the experience called life. And we're given the gifts, the various gifts in different volumes, to be able to help each other, to be able to contribute to each other, to those who don't have certain gifts, and to take from those who have more than their fair share. So I look forward to coming to you again from a different location with a different message a little later on this morning, where we can share experiences and help each other get through the morning, get through the day, get through the week, where we can be the wind beneath our wings, where we can be the wave beneath our board, where we can be the zephyr that bellows our sails and flutters our flags, and be the turbines, the propellers that churn the waters and propel us to our destination. So Yassas, thank you very much. Let's live, learn and pass it on. And I'll finish off with my positive affirmation. I'm alive, I am well, and I feel absolutely great. And let's make the most of this day, this unique week. It's Holy Week for the Eastern Orthodox Christians. And I wish Galo Pascha, Galia Nasasi to all of those who are celebrating Pascha, and good strength to those who are fasting. And may we all come together in peace and harmony and be with our families this weekend and enjoy each other's company and live in peace, as we said, and harmony, and be loving and respectful of each other. Take care. Ki Yassas. Bye for now.